So again, another question of fractions is working with some applications. So this is question 12. To cut expenses, a carpenter sometimes glues two kinds of plywood together. We also know sometimes gluing different types of plywood together also adds a lot more strength to the piece of wood. So it's interesting about how plywood works. So he glues a 2/5 inch piece of walnut plywood to a 3/10 inch piece of a less expensive plywood. What is the total thickness of these together? So total thickness kind of implies that we need to be adding these together. So that word total there. So kind of implies we need to add this 2/5 inches plus this 3/10 inches. Now 2/5 means a fifth plus a fifth. 3/10 means a tenth and a tenth and a tenth. Notice that these are not the same family of fractions. So if you have the same family of fractions, all you really do is add the numerators and keep the denominators. So fifth and a fifth just means 2/5. A tenth and a tenth and a tenth means 3/10. So when you add fractions, if you're in the same family, you keep the denominator and then you add the numerators to total up how many of that family you have. So since we don't have the same family, we cannot add them together. So what we have to do is find what we call a common denominator or a common multiple. So if we look at the denominators of 5 and a 10, we're looking for a common multiple. Well, the next multiple of 5 is 10. So what we're picking up on is 10 is a common denominator. So to make this work, I can rename the 2/5 so it has a denominator 10. But to do that, I got to multiply the numerator and denominator both by 2. So when I multiply the top by 2, that turns into a 4. When I multiply the bottom by 2, that turns into a 10. So 2/5 is the same thing as 4/10. Then if you add 3 more tenths to that, that gives us a total thickness of 7/10. So we have 4/10 and another 3/10, which makes a grand total of 7/10 altogether. So again, 7/10 is a shortcut for 7/1/10, or a tenth plus a tenth plus a tenth, but you're doing that 7 times. So this is a very shortcut language when it comes to expressing it as a value. It's a lot easier to write 7/10 as opposed to adding a tenth 7 times or even 7/1/10. So we can just call that 7/10. So 7/10 means 7/1/10. So 7/10 inches would be total thickness. Now remember, it's got to be in lowest terms. So 7/10, I don't see a common divisor in a 7 or a 10, so that would be reduced. Now again, you can use a calculator to do this. With fractions, a lot of times I'll use parentheses. So in parentheses, I'll put, let's see if I can get this to come on for us. So I'll put in parentheses 2 divided by 5 plus then 3 divided by 10. Just my habit. And just I feel more comfortable sometimes using parentheses to say, hey, do the 2/5 and then add the 3/10. Now on the calculator, I turned it into a decimal, but notice that means 7/10. Or if I use the math button and turn my answer to a fraction, it'll give me this 7/10. So you can do this math on a calculator as well. There's also a fraction button menu. This little green F1 has a fraction menu in it. So if I hit the alpha button and then hit the Y equals button, it'll show me this fraction menu. So notice I have this first one, N over D. Notice that if I select that, it'll give me a fraction model. So I put the 2 there, use my directional pad, 5, use my directional pad, add then, and then if I hit that alpha button again, hit the Y equals, I can actually put a fraction model into the calculator. So 3/10, 3 down arrow 10, and come out. And then if I hit enter, it should keep it in a fraction form, and it should just give me the 7/10. So technically, you can add fractions on a calculator as well. But this problem really was so basic, it wouldn't be worth the trouble to do it on a calculator because really all I had to do is multiply the 2 and the 5 by 10 to create 4 tenths, and 4 tenths plus 3 tenths is 7 tenths. That would be much quicker to do it by hand. So hopefully you find that useful in working with fractions.